Hey everyone, welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy's Ted, and today I'm joined by...
Nerdarchy's Dave.
There was supposed to be a kaboom! An earth-shattering kaboom!
Playing D&D without a controller. I want to start this video by thanking our sponsor, Easy Roller Dice. Whether it's your first set of dice or your 1 millionth set of dice, Easy Roller Dice for your dice rolling needs. As always, down in the description, you can find a link, easyrollerdice.com/nerdarchy, as well as a one-time coupon for a whopping 20% off. Go get some Easy Roller Dice.
All right, so we're continuing this series of what to do if you don't got, and today we're talking about not having a controller.
It is true, running your D&D game without filling the party roles and a controller. What exactly is the controller for those people at home that might not know?
All right, the controller is typically a mage, someone who's got the ability to control the battlefield by casting area effect spells that get rid of the weaker monsters. You know, putting out long-lasting effects that, you know, get enemies out of the way or stop them from coming towards you. Lots of big effects, lots of boom, and, you know, the ability to mitigate the masses.
Yeah, it's pretty much going to be your druid, wizard, warlock, sorcerer, and bard to lesser degree.
Right.
So yes, they have the ability to change what is happening on the battlefield, control movements, things like that, or just do a lot of damage over a large swath of area. So when you take away that character from the game, it's going to create some challenges. Like if you want to, as the DM, use mob tactics and style monsters, those monsters now have become a lot more effective, because there's times when I'm planning an adventure, I'm going, well, you know what? These Sturges, the wizard can just cast sleep and knock most of them out.
Or I'm going to use 37 chokers and Ted kills them all with a blade barrier. Like...
Right, yeah. Like literally at a certain point, certain monsters, like you can even just stop counting numbers. They can, because the margin matters so little, because as Ted just stated in one of our games, I grabbed all of his little tiny minis and surrounded them. And there were so many, more than any of us cared to count. But he cast one spell and eliminated most of them. You know, so at that point, they almost become like a hazard. Now, that's completely different if you don't have that caster that can do that.
If you don't have the ability to have an area effect, and now those 37 monsters all get to roll attacks, well, chances are out of 37 attacks, a couple of them are going to be crits. Some of them are going to hit, especially with the bounded accuracy of 5th edition. You know, they're going to get in there. Even low-level monsters sometimes have multi-attack. So if they're coming in with multiple attacks, that 37 now becomes 74 attacks. You know, your chances of a crit, you know, just went up to, you know, roughly 3 to 5. That's going to be an excessive amount of damage, especially if some of these things are hitting somewhat hard. So, like, you have to plan as the DM, what are you going to do when you're planning your encounters? Oh, well, I don't have a controller. I can't use mob tactics. I need to have the central figure and maybe 1 or 2 goons, and that's going to be the focus of the encounter.
Yeah, I mean, even with rolling a 17 and above, there's weak monsters that are probably going to hit some of your squishier targets that happen to not be controllers, like maybe your rogues or your rangers, who have a little bit of higher armor class, but not the same as maybe a cleric wearing heavy armor or a fighter. But you know what? This does create some interesting opportunities on the battlefield for you as the GM. Maybe you want to use big hulking monsters. Well, a party that doesn't have a controller is probably going to do really well against that type of monster.
And you wind up being able to create interesting encounters, and if you have a monster that hits hard, well, you might have your healer, you just don't have your controller, so go ahead and, you know, tear into them, you know, let them have fun and pound away and see how it winds up going. The cleric will get the heal, you'll get to have some fun, and, you know, you just keep going.
Well, and the other thing, too, like we talked about those mob monsters and mob tactics. Well, the other area where this party is going to suffer from, you know, is during an encounter. If there's a lot of ranged attacks, they probably aren't as efficient as making ranged attacks. Like, you might have a ranger, you might have the rogue, but it's like one shot, one kill. You know, it's not like the mage or the sorcerer who is going to
Fireball.
yeah, and is just going to lay out a large area of destruction where even like your ranged attacks that are from characters that aren't as good at it, they could still be dropping weakened monsters from this. So that's going to be something to have to contend with, and you're going to want to think about as a GM. Am I saying never do it? No. Yeah, every once in a while it's good to point out the weaknesses of the party, but you're going to have to be aware of it and maybe make sure they have a way around that.
So as we said, your GM, stay away from mob monsters, focus on singular stuff, have some fun tactical abilities, but be aware that the party just doesn't have the ability to control the battlefield the way a party would if they have all the roles filled. From a player side, you have to then look at your combats more tactically. Okay, well, how do we protect the characters with that weaker armor class? How do we use the battlefield, the terrain, the things to our advantage? Can I create choke points if there's a lot of monsters? Can we backtrack to a defensible position? Use things that you've got set up in advance where possible.
Yeah, where monsters can't get to you, in a mob at all at once, or where you're going to be defensible against ranged attacks. All of those things, these are going to be important for you to think about as a player. Another thing is, are you able to goad opponents into challenges and honor duels? Can you, instead of fighting all the orcs, can you just challenge their chieftain and maybe, defeat him and make them lose face and basically defeat the whole encounter by only defeating one portion of it? If your paladin or your fighter or your barbarian, defeats that one enemy in single combat.
So like that number one is going to open up some cool role-playing opportunities because you step outside of the normal realm of round-to-round combat and get into all right, this is a one-on-one, and all right, maybe some of your party might not be seriously into it, but if you're already beat the heck, okay, well, cleric, use your last spell on me to heal me to full, and we're going to go do this. Well, you as the fighter, you've defeated the orc tribe. Well, do you by chance have any orc heritage? Will the orc tribe now put you on a pedestal? Are you now their chieftain? Or is it, okay, well, you've defeated me, I relinquish to you, but I'm still alive because you kept the guy alive, and now I'm still leader, but we'll do as you say, and we won't lead that attack upon your town. So, like, you can do a lot of cool things with it.
Now, another area where you can kind of make up for things a little bit, and we kind of talked about a little bit with tactics and being able to choose the battlefield. Well, what if you can prepare the battlefild? Your rogues and rangers, what if they're able to set up traps? What if someone uses alchemist fire or is able to put down a lot of oil or something so you can create your own AoEs, even without a controller?
So it's like, all right, I might not be able to cast the grease spell, but I'm a rogue. I'm pretty dexterous. I'm gonna set this up. I'm gonna go lure the bad guys into the area, and I'm gonna either skirt it or I'm gonna set up an area, with grease. You might not have the wizard spell grease, but you might have access to some. You pour it out over an area. You have your rogue go lure the enemies back. You start running, cartwheel through the grease. And then when they show up, they slip, they slide, they get coated in the stuff. The other guy drops a torch and whoosh, the whole thing catches the fire. They're now taking damage. As you said, you're creating your own AoE type stuff.
Absolutely. We've seen the use of ball bearings in Critical Role, and we've seen other people use them, maybe spreading caltrops out. Maybe you have lots of bars of soap and you just soap the floor in the dungeon. So there's definitely some different things you can do there. Another area where you can kind of make up for not having the wizard or the sorcerer or the druid is magic items.
So there's loads of magic items that can be, found. This really is going to require your input and your direct involvement from your GM, because if you don't get access to that wand of fireballs, well, then you're really not going to get it. But plenty of things like that are going to help cover the gaps in those party roles.
Absolutely. And also, there is one other area that we didn't even talk about. That is the idea of certain races have racial abilities. You're not going to get a lot of uses, but you might get some. The Dragonborn's breath weapon. The Drow has and Tiefling has some spells they can use. Azamar as well. So you might be able to get a little bit of that going on, especially if the party is diverse enough or have enough of those types of races. Throughout the day, you're going to be able to sprinkle it in.
Magic initiate, you might get a small dabbling. You're only going to get access to things like Burning Hands or Thunder Wave, to cover some, but it's a small dabble into that field if you really want to go that direction.
Then we have what we consider secondary casters. Now, this one is going to help a little bit. It's problematic in other areas because essentially you have the cleric, the paladin, the ranger, eldritch knight, arcane trickster, arcane archer. There's different ones that are going to give you abilities that are going to give you some control. Now, if it's like, hey, you're a rogue and you have access to this, or you're a fighter and you have access to this, it's not a big deal. It's not as good as actually being a full caster.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're the cleric or the paladin, well, you're taking away from other things that you can do. If you're the cleric and you're casting Flame Strike or Blade Barrier, well, you're not going to be healing as much or doing some other things. If you're the paladin and you're using your spells as spells, well, you're not going to be smiting.
Right, and the paladin is, typically used. I say typically, but based on our group. But a lot of times you see paladins. They're about dealing damage, and they're not really spells. They're just smites in waiting. So you can play it however you like.
The closest I see to paladins using their spells is like if they want to go Nova, and they cast a smite spell and then like smite on top of that.
I've seen that happen too. Now, all of this, boils down to like the actual battlefield stuff. But, there is a small other, caveat, addendum, however you want to look at it, where initially the controller is generally going to be the intelligent member of a group. And that's the person that's going to be identifying or passing your knowledge checks, or your intelligence checks, I should say, when you're out exploring. So you're going to have to, try to find a workaround in those regards, or as a DM, you're going to have to plan around. Okay, well, no one's really heavily proficient in Arcana or history or religion, so they're not going to know. Oh, well, when I go into combat, they're not going to know the checks to say, oh, well, this thing's resistant to or vulnerable against. So they're not going to have those battlefield advantages that they might have had as well. So you want to plan for that. As the party, you're going to have to be aware that please don't metagame, and try your best at, okay, should somebody be trying to get these skills, or do you just screw it, roll without it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things with that. Not only in the things on the battlefield, but puzzles and riddles and just general knowledge stuff that would be useful. There isn't a go-to person for that now. Unless maybe this could be a great opportunity for someone that plays against type. Maybe you're actually a fighter and you've got Alchemy Lab and Arcana and skills that generally aren't taking by a fighter, and you can actually do a couple things. You have Alchemist Fire that you use sometimes, and you're making grenades, and you're actually more knowledgeable in some areas that a fighter typically isn't. So it could create some fun role-playing situations that way. The other area where you're going to want to lean on, and this is actually a lot of fun for the players and for the GM, I believe, and that is NPCs, whether the players decide to seek out these NPCs for those knowledge gaps that they have, or the DM decides to interject them.
So, however you do it, there's plenty of ways to get around not having a controller. There's plenty of ways to keep playing this game without that intelligence-based character, without playing that character that just fireballs everything in their path. Have fun your way. Here's some some basic tips to be able to make it happen. So what do you guys think? Share your stories down below. Did we miss any tips? You got any awesome stories about what happened when you didn't have one? Down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Don't forget, while you're down there, head to the description where you can find that one-time coupon code as well as the link to Easy Roller Dice.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.